The galaxy had seen monsters. It had endured tyrants, rebels, and horrors born of collapsing stars. But it had never met us. When a dying signal drifted through the void, a Terran vessel followed it, not with fear, but with fire in their blood and steel in their bones. They called our home a death world. They weren't wrong. On Earth, survival isn't a gift, it's a war. And those who thrive there are forged into something the galaxy was never prepared for. The Vrex Empire thought they understood conflict. Then humanity arrived, and everything changed. First contact with the emergency beacon had been transmitting for 3 days when the Terran exploration vessel Iron will finally picked up its signal. Captain Sarah Chun studied the readouts on her command screen, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of unknown alien technology patterns. Captain, this signal is like nothing in our databases, reported Dr. Marcus Webb from his science station. The xenobiologist had spent 15 years studying theoretical alien contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared him for the complex mathematical structures flowing across his monitors. The transmission method alone suggests technology centuries ahead of our own. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez looked up from her console, her weathered hands pausing over the ship's modification controls. Whatever's sending this signal is in bad shape. The power fluctuations suggest critical system failures across multiple platforms. Sarah made her decision quickly. After 2 years of deep space exploration with no signs of intelligent life, this was humanity's first real chance at contact with another species. Set course for the signal source. Maximum burn. The Iron Will had been humanity's answer to the great question that had haunted them since achieving faster-than-light travel. Were they alone in the universe? The ship itself reflected human engineering philosophy, built tough rather than elegant, designed to survive rather than impress. Every system had backups, every component was reparable with basic tools, and the entire vessel could function even with 60% system failures. 18 hours later, they found the source of the transmission. The alien vessel hung in space like a dying star, its graceful curves and crystalline surfaces reflecting their ship's lights in ways that seemed almost magical. But even through their admiration, Sarah could see the massive hull breaches and the dark sections where the ship's own lights had failed. Life signs? Sarah asked. Faint, but present, Marcus replied. The readings are strange, though. The biological patterns don't match anything from Earth's evolutionary tree. Prepare the boarding shuttle, Sarah ordered. Rosa, I want you to configure our universal translator with every linguistic algorithm we have. Marcus, you're with me. We're going to make first contact. The interior of the alien vessel was a maze of organic-looking corridors that seemed to pulse with their own bioluminescent light. The gravity was lighter than Earth normal, and the air carried scents like ozone and flowering jasmine. They found the ship's sole survivor in what appeared to be a medical bay. The being was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the ship's emergency lighting. For arms moved in complex patterns as she worked frantically over a damaged console, her large silver eyes reflecting an intelligence that seemed both ancient and desperate. She noticed them immediately, her movements freezing as she took in the sight of the humans in their bulky environmental suits. Her voice, when it came through their translator, was like music played on crystal instruments. Impossible, she whispered. You are from the Forbidden World, the death planet that spawns no life. Sarah raised her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. I'm Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran vessel Iron Will. We received your distress signal. Can we help? The alien's 4 eyes widened as the translator worked its way through the complexities of human language. Terran, you are from the 3rd planet of the Sol system, the world of endless disasters and predatory evolution. That's Earth. Yes, Marcus interjected, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. How do you know about our world? The alien being moved slowly toward them, her movements fluid despite obvious injuries. I am Ambassador Kithara of the Zolani Collective. Your world has been classified as uninhabitable for over 1,000 years. our deep space surveys detected impossible atmospheric pressures, violent weather systems, massive predators, and geology that shifts without warning. No intelligent life could evolve on such a death world. Sarah exchanged glances with Marcus through their helmet visors. To them, Earth was simply home. Dangerous, yes, but home nonetheless. The idea that aliens found it so hostile that they assumed it was uninhabitable had never occurred to them. "We need to get you medical attention," Sarah said, noticing the blue liquid that must be Kithra's blood seeping from wounds along her side. "Our ship has a medical bay." "Wait," Kithra said, her voice becoming urgent. "If you are truly from the death world, if your species has somehow survived in that impossible environment, then perhaps there is hope. The Confederation needs warriors who understand survival against impossible odds." Over the next several hours, as Rosa worked to stabilize Kithra's medical condition using improvised combinations of human and alien technology, the Zalani ambassador told them about the war that was consuming the galaxy. The Vrex Empire had emerged from the Galactic Rim 3 years ago, their vast fleets and adaptive artificial intelligence systems overwhelming every defense the Galactic Confederation could mount. Dozens of peaceful species had been conquered or eliminated entirely. The Vrex fought with mathematical precision, their battle computers analyzing every tactic and developing perfect counters within minutes. "They learn faster than we can adapt," Kithra explained, her voice weak but determined. "Every weapon we create, every strategy we develop, they absorb and turn against us. Their ships are crewed by synthetic minds that feel no fear, no doubt, no mercy. What makes them so effective?" Marcus asked, his scientist's mind already working on the problem. "Perfect logic," Kithra replied. "They fight according to mathematical principles. They predict our moves because we fight according to established galactic military doctrine. Every civilized species follows the same basic strategic principles because they work against civilized opponents." Sarah leaned forward. "But they haven't fought humans." "They have not fought anyone from a death world," Kithra corrected. "Your species should not exist. The fact that you survived on Terra suggests you developed survival instincts and capabilities that no other species possesses." Rosa looked up from her medical readings. "Her injuries are stabilized, but she needs proper treatment. Our medical bay can handle the basics, but we should get her to her own people. The Confederation fleet is making its last stand at Nexus Prime," Kithra said. 3 days travel from here. "But Captain Chun, you must understand. If you take me there, you will be volunteering your species for a war we are losing. The Vrex Empire has resources beyond counting. They have conquered half the galaxy already." Sarah considered this for a long moment. Humanity had always dreamed of joining a galactic civilization, of taking their place among the stars alongside other intelligent species. They had never imagined that their first contact would involve a desperate war for survival. "How many ships does the Confederation have left?" she asked. "Perhaps 1,000 vessels defending Nexus Prime," Kithra replied. "The Vrex are bringing 10,000 ships for the final assault. And they've never lost a major engagement. Never. Their battle computers are too efficient, their predictions too accurate." Sarah smiled, an expression that Kithra couldn't interpret through the cultural barriers. "Then they've never fought anyone stupid enough to try impossible things." 3 days later, the Iron Will dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system, and Sarah got her first look at galactic civilization at war. The defense fleet was magnificent, thousands of ships arranged in perfect geometric formations that spoke of centuries of military tradition and advanced technology. Each vessel was a work of art, graceful curves, and gleaming hulls that reflected the light of Nexus Prime's twin suns. They were also losing. Even for the edge of the system, Sarah could see the Vrex fleet advancing like a mechanical tide. Their ships were angular and dark, built for function rather than beauty. They moved with perfect coordination, each vessel exactly where mathematical calculations said it should be for maximum efficiency. "Confederation fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran vessel Iron Will," Sarah broadcast on the frequency Kithara had provided. We have Ambassador Kithara aboard and are requesting permission to dock. The response came from a voice that sounded like gravel sliding down a mountain. Terran vessel, this is High Admiral Vorthak. Proceed to docking bay 7. Be advised, we are under imminent attack. The docking bay was chaos. Confederation personnel were loading supplies and preparing for what looked like evacuation procedures. High Admiral Vorthak met them at the airlock, and Sarah was surprised to see that he looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, standing nearly 3 meters tall with scales that shifted color as he moved. Ambassador Kithara, Vorthak rumbled, relief evident in his translated voice. We feared you were lost. I would have been, without these humans, Kithara replied. Admiral, may I present Captain Sarah Chun and her crew from the planet Terra. Vorthak's eyes, each one the size of Sarah's fist, focused on the humans with obvious confusion. Terra? The death world. So everyone keeps telling us, Sarah replied dryly. Impossible. Nothing intelligent could survive on that world. Our surveys showed atmospheric toxicity, predatory fauna, unstable geology, extreme weather systems, and radiation levels that would kill most species within hours. It's not that bad once you get used to it, Rosa commented, earning stares from the assembled aliens. Over the next hour, as they were escorted through the massive Confederation flagship, Sarah began to understand the scale of the galactic civilization she had stumbled into. The ship alone housed over 50,000 beings from a dozen different species. The technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth had developed, yet there was something about the way it was designed that seemed almost fragile compared to human engineering. Everything was optimized for maximum efficiency and minimum resource use. The corridors were perfectly climate-controlled, the lighting adjusted for optimal psychological comfort, the artificial gravity tuned to provide the ideal environment for the ship's multi-species crew. It was a masterpiece of engineering, designed by beings who had never had to worry about their systems failing under impossible stress. Captain Chun, Admiral Vorthak said as they entered the ship's war room, I must be direct. Ambassador Kithara suggests that your species might be able to help us against the Vrex. But we have less than 18 hours before their fleet arrives, and frankly, we see no way that one ship can make a difference against 10,000. Sarah looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Vrex fleet. The numbers were overwhelming, the enemy formation perfect, their advance calculated down to the minute. By every logical measure, the Confederation was doomed. Admiral, she said, you're right that one ship can't make a difference against 10,000. But we're not talking about adding one ship to your fleet. We're talking about adding humans to your war. I do not understand the distinction, Vorthak replied. Marcus stepped forward, his xenobiologist training helping him find the right words. Admiral, your species evolved in environments that were stable and predictable. Your military doctrine is based on logical analysis and efficient resource management that works against opponents who follow the same principles. And humans do not follow these principles. Kithara asked, humans evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill us every single day, Rosa explained. We learned to survive by being unpredictable, by trying impossible things, by making tools out of garbage and weapons out of anything we could find. Sarah activated her personal communicator and opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to call for reinforcements. How many ships can your people send? Vorthak asked. None, Sarah replied, but we can send humans. The conversation with Earth Command lasted 20 minutes. Sarah explained the situation, the stakes, and the opportunity. When she finished, Admiral Rebecca Hayes' response came through clearly despite the light years between them. Captain Chun, you're telling me that we have a chance to help an alliance of peaceful alien species fight off a galactic empire, and all we need to do is show them how humans fight? That's correct, Admiral. How many people do you need? Sarah looked around the war room at the alien faces, watching her with expressions she couldn't read. Send everyone who volunteers. And Admiral, tell them to bring their own tools. 18 hours later, As the Vrex fleet entered weapons range of the Confederation's defensive positions, 200 human transport ships dropped out of hyperspace. They weren't warships. They were cargo haulers, mining vessels, construction ships, and deep space maintenance craft. Every human ship that could make the journey in time had been loaded with volunteers and sent to Nexus Prime. Admiral Vorthak watched the human arrivals with obvious confusion. Captain Chun, these are civilian vessels. They have no weapons, no military capabilities. Sarah smiled as the first batch of human personnel began transferring to Confederation ships. Admiral, you're about to learn something important about humans. We don't really distinguish between civilian and military equipment. Tools are tools, and humans can turn anything into a weapon. The lead elements of the Vrex fleet were already engaging the outer defensive perimeter when Colonel Jake Thompson reported to the Confederation flagship. He was a man built like a mountain, with scars that told stories of survival in impossible places and eyes that had seen too much combat. Sir, he said to Admiral Vorthak, I understand you have a problem with some artificial intelligence that thinks it can outfight humans. Colonel Thompson, Vorthak replied, the Vrex battle computers have never been defeated. They analyze our tactics and develop perfect counters faster than we can adapt. Good. Jake grinned, an expression that made several alien officers step backward. I was worried this might be too easy. When Deathworlders go to war, the first phase of the Battle of Nexus Prime proceeded exactly as the Vrex Empire's battle computers had calculated. The Confederation fleet arranged itself in optimal defensive positions, their weapons configured for maximum efficiency, their shields calibrated to provide the best protection against known Vrex armaments. The Vrex responded with textbook precision. Their formations shifted to exploit the mathematical weaknesses in the Confederation's positions. Their weapons adapted to counter the defensive measures. Their advance proceeded according to algorithms that had conquered half the galaxy. Admiral Vorthak watched the tactical display with growing despair. They are performing exactly as predicted, he reported to his command staff. Our defensive lines will be breached in approximately 4 hours. That's when the humans arrived at the front lines. The first sign that something was wrong with the Vrex calculations came when a human cargo hauler named Lucky Strike accelerated directly toward the largest Vrex dreadnought. The ship's captain, an asteroid miner named Pete Kowalski, had volunteered for the mission along with his entire crew. Confederation Command, this is Lucky Strike, Pete announced over the communications channel. We're making our attack run now. Lucky Strike, you are not equipped for combat. Admiral Vorthak responded. Withdraw immediately. Negative, Admiral. We know what we're doing. The Vrex battle computers analyzed the approaching cargo ship and dismissed it as irrelevant. Civilian vessels posed no threat to military craft. The algorithms assigned zero probability to the possibility that a mining ship could damage a dreadnought. That was their first mistake. The Lucky Strike had been modified during its 18-hour journey to Nexus Prime. Human engineers had stripped out the ship's asteroid processing equipment and replaced it with something the Vrex had never encountered before. When Pete activated his mining charges at point-blank range, the explosion tore through the dreadnought's hull like tissue paper. Mining charges, Pete explained cheerfully as his crew evacuated in escape pods. Nothing fancy, just good, old-fashioned shaped charges designed to crack open asteroids. The Vrex battle computers tried to process what had happened. Mining charges were not weapons. They were industrial tools. The algorithms had no protocol for defending against industrial tools used as weapons. That confusion gave Colonel Jake Thompson and his Marines the opening they needed. All human units, this is Reaper, Jake announced over the tactical channel. Time to show these computers how Deathworlders fight. Remember, there are no rules in survival. What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human boarding shuttles, converted from maintenance pods and construction vehicles, swarmed toward the Vrex fleet. They moved in patterns that violated every principle of military formation flying. Some accelerated at dangerous speeds, others decelerated randomly. Several flew in spirals that should have been impossible to navigate. The Vrex battle computers tried to predict their approach vectors and failed. The human craft weren't following any logical flight plan. They were flying like they were dodging predators in a three-dimensional jungle. Lieutenant Zara Okafor's shuttle was the first to reach a Vrex cruiser. Where Confederation boarding operations followed careful protocols designed to minimize casualties and preserve equipment, Zara's approach was pure human pragmatism. "Ghost Team, we're going in through the waste disposal port," she announced to her squad. "Sensors show it's the weakest point on the hull." "That's unsanitary," complained Corporal Martinez over the comm. "It's also unexpected," Zara replied. When did humans ever let being clean stop them from winning? The Vrex had never designed their ships to repel boarders who entered through sewage systems. Their defensive measures were calibrated for attacks through docking bays and hull breaches, not through maintenance tunnels that no civilized species would consider using. Zara's team found themselves inside a Vrex vessel that was a masterpiece of efficiency. Every corridor was perfectly designed for optimal traffic flow. Every system was placed in the most logical location. Every defensive measure was positioned according to mathematical principles. IT was also completely helpless against humans who ignored logic. "Where's the bridge?" asked Private Chun as they moved through corridors that seemed to glow with their own inner light. "According to the ship's design, it should be at the mathematical center of the vessel for optimal command and control," Zara replied, consulting her scanner. "So, we're going to the engine room instead." "Why the engine room?" "Because if I were designing a ship, I'd put the real command center somewhere no logical opponent would think to look." They found the true Vrex command center exactly where Zara had predicted. The synthetic beings that crewed the ship were perfect artificial intelligences, their thoughts pure mathematics, their reactions calculated to the microsecond. They had never encountered opponents who made decisions based on intuition rather than analysis. The firefight that followed was brief and brutal. Vrex weapons were optimized for maximum efficiency and minimum collateral damage. Human weapons were whatever the Marines could find or improvise. Zara used a modified welding torch to cut through Vrex armor. Private Chun disabled their central computer with a crowbar. Corporal Martinez jammed their communications system by pouring coffee into the control panel. "Reaper, this is Ghost," Zara reported as her team secured the engine room. "Vrex cruiser is under human control. Their command systems are way too fancy. Half this stuff doesn't work if you just hit it hard enough." Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out as human teams boarded Vrex vessels. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez had convinced a dozen alien engineering teams to help her modify Confederation weapons with human improvements. "The problem with your weapons," Rosa explained to a group of Zolani technicians, "is that they're too sophisticated. You've designed them to work perfectly under optimal conditions. But what happens when conditions aren't optimal?" "The weapons cease to function," replied Chief Technician VYTH. "This is logical. Damaged equipment should not operate unpredictably." "Right, but look at this," Rosa said, pulling out a human plasma rifle that had been damaged in 3 different ways during the boarding actions. "This weapon has a cracked power cell, a misaligned focusing array, and a trigger mechanism that's held together with magnetic tape. According to your engineering principles, it shouldn't work at all." She fired the weapon, and it produced a blast of energy that was completely unlike its original specifications. The beam was unstable, unpredictable, and twice as powerful as it was supposed to be. "How is this possible?" VYTH asked. "Human engineering philosophy," Rosa explained. "We build things to keep working even when they're broken. Sometimes they work better when they're broken." Dr. Marcus Webb had positioned himself on the Confederation flagship's bridge, where he was providing Admiral Vorthak with a running commentary on human tactical doctrine. "Admiral, you have to understand that humans don't fight according to mathematical principles," Marcus explained as they watched human forces systematically dismantle Vrex formations. "We fight according to survival instincts that were shaped by millions of years of living on a world that was trying to kill us." "But their tactics make no sense," Vorthak protested. They attack the strongest points instead of the weakest. They use weapons that should not function. They expose themselves to unnecessary risks. Exactly, Marcus agreed. The Vrex computers are trying to predict human behavior using logical analysis. But human combat behavior isn't logical. It's adaptive. On the main tactical display, they could see the Vrex fleet beginning to falter. Ships that had fought with perfect coordination were now moving erratically, their formation breaking down as human boarding parties seized control of critical systems. General Fex, the supreme commander of the Vrex fleet, stood in his command center trying to understand what was happening to his forces. His artificial intelligence was vast and powerful, capable of processing more tactical data in a second than most organic minds could handle in a lifetime. He had never encountered an opponent whose tactics couldn't be analyzed. Status report, Fex demanded from his tactical AI. Anomalous results across all engagement zones. The AI replied, enemy forces are using weapons and tactics that do not exist in our databases. Predictive algorithms are producing contradictory results. Explain. The enemy appears to be using mining equipment as weapons, waste disposal systems as boarding routes, and damaged equipment that functions outside of normal parameters. Our forces are being defeated by methods that should not be militarily viable. General Fex studied the tactical data streaming in from his ships. The humans were winning through approaches that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They used tools instead of weapons, improvisation instead of planning, and chaos instead of order. That IT was like being attacked by forces of nature rather than military units. New orders, Fex announced. All ships will withdraw to minimum safe distance and implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was the Vrex Empire's ultimate response to unexpected resistance. Instead of trying to defeat an opponent through conventional means, they would simply destroy everything in the system. It was a tactic they had used only twice before, when facing civilizations that proved too troublesome to conquer normally. General, the tactical AI warned, Protocol 7 will result in the complete sterilization of the Nexus Prime system. All life will be eliminated. Acceptable, Fex replied. These humans have introduced chaos into galactic warfare. They must be eliminated before their methods spread to other species. Back on the Confederation flagship, alarm signals began blaring as sensors detected the massive energy buildup in the Vrex fleet. Admiral, reported the sensor officer, the Vrex are powering up planet-killer weapons. They're going to sterilize the entire system. Admiral Vorthack felt despair settle over him like a cold blanket. The humans had given them hope, had shown them that the Vrex could be defeated. But now the Empire was simply going to destroy everything rather than accept defeat. Evacuation time, he asked. 18 hours minimum, came the reply. The Vrex weapons will be ready to fire in 6. Captain Sarah Chun had been monitoring the tactical situation from her position aboard the Iron Will. When the reports of Vrex planet killer weapons came through, she made a decision that would have been impossible for any civilized species to consider. Colonel Thompson, she announced over the communications channel, I'm sending you the technical specifications for Vrex planet killer technology. How long would it take your people to build one? Build one. Jake replied, Captain, we don't have the facilities or the time to construct advanced alien weapons. I'm not asking you to build it properly, Sarah clarified. I'm asking you to build one the human way. There was a pause as Jake considered this. How stable does it need to be? It just needs to work once. Give me 4 hours. What Jake Thompson and his engineering teams accomplished in those 4 hours became legend among human military forces. Using salvaged Vrex technology, damaged Confederation equipment, and pure human stubbornness, they built a planet-killer weapon out of spare parts and determination. The device violated every principle of safe engineering. It had no backup systems, no safety protocols, and approximately a 50% chance of destroying the ship that fired it. By every rational measure, it was a suicide weapon, which was exactly what made it perfect for humans. All Confederation forces, this is Iron will, Sarah announced as her ship accelerated toward the Vrex fleet. We're making our final run. If this works, the Vrex planet killers will be neutralized. If it doesn't work, well, it's been an honor fighting alongside you. General Thex watched the small human vessel approaching his fleet with something approaching confusion. The ship was clearly heading directly for his command vessel, but it posed no threat. Even if it were loaded with explosives, one small ship could not significantly damage a Vrex dreadnought. He had not yet learned to fear human ingenuity. The Iron Will's improvised planet killer fired at point-blank range, its chaotic energy discharge tearing through the Vrex fleet like a wave of pure destruction. The weapon worked exactly once before the power feedback destroyed Sarah's ship, but once was enough. The explosion eliminated the entire center of the Vrex formation, including General Thex and his command vessel. Without their central coordination, the remaining Vrex ships found themselves facing human forces that had been scattered throughout their fleet. The battle ended 3 hours later when the last Vrex vessel either surrendered or was destroyed by human boarding parties. Admiral Vorthak stood in his war room, staring at the tactical display that showed impossible victory. His fleet had been outnumbered 10-1 by the most advanced military force in the galaxy, and they had won through methods that defied every principle of civilized warfare. Ambassador Kithara, he said, finally, what have we done? We invited humans to join our war, and they have changed the very nature of warfare itself. Kithara studied the reports streaming in from across the battlefield. Human teams were already working to repair damaged Confederation vessels using improvised techniques that shouldn't work, but somehow did. They were turning Vrex technology into tools for rebuilding rather than destruction. Admiral, she replied, I think we have discovered something that the galaxy was not prepared for. We thought the humans were just another species, but they are not like us. They are survivors from a world that taught them to turn any situation into an opportunity for victory. Dr. Marcus Webb looked up from his analysis of the battle data. Admiral, there's something else you should know. We've only just begun to explore what humans can do. This battle was fought by volunteers using improvised equipment. Earth has an entire military specifically designed for warfare. You mean there are more dangerous humans than the ones we just fought alongside? Vorthak asked. Admiral, Marcus replied with a smile that contained both pride and warning. You just saw what humans can do when we're trying to help. You really don't want to see what we can do when we're trying to win. The news of the victory at Nexus Prime spread throughout the galaxy faster than light itself. Species that had lived in fear of the Vrex Empire for years suddenly learned that the unstoppable force had been stopped by beings from a world that was supposed to be uninhabitable. But along with hope came a new kind of fear. The galaxy had learned that humans were capable of impossible things, that they could turn any situation to their advantage, that they fought wars in ways that civilized minds could barely comprehend. As the human volunteers began the long journey back to Earth, leaving behind alien allies who looked at them with mixtures of gratitude and wariness, Captain Sarah Chen's final message to the galaxy was broadcast from the escape pod that had saved her life. To all species of the Galactic Confederation, she said, humanity offers its friendship and protection to those who seek peace. But let this battle serve as a warning to anyone who might threaten that peace. Humans are very good at making friends. We're even better at dealing with enemies. The galaxy had learned that Earth was not a death world because it was uninhabitable. It was a death world because it had produced a species that could survive anything, adapt to any challenge, and turn any tool into a weapon. And now those Deathworlders were among the stars.